Everybody, happy Wednesday. On our way actually to our flip property, so my personal flip property that I bought a couple months ago, and we are set. We actually just got a clear to close, and it's up in good old Latrell, off of Tater Valley. What a road name, good old Tater Valley. But this video talking about it actually is very relatable to this flip property, and also relatable to another flip property that I had done and closed on like a month or so ago, maybe a little longer now. So it's actually our third flip property that we've closed on this year. And like complete full disclosure, I don't consider myself a flipper. I'm like very minor work. If the house probably needs more than 30,000, I don't really know. I don't have a number, but if it needs like significant investment work, and the margins are just not incredible, I'm not touching it. I do have like some really, really awesome handyman and a lot of great contractors in various lines of work that I trust and that have done right by me for a couple years. So there are some lines of work that I feel very confident in, and there's also some lines of work where I don't, especially big jobs and having like one person run it. That's a little scary because I know you can get screwed like that very quickly. But there's also some great people out there. I've just never done a big one, and it makes me have anxiety a little bit. So what I want to talk about in this video is how to sell a property. Like, we're in a slow market. Where are we? It's July, I don't know, 8th, 9th today. In 2025, inventory is at record highs since COVID. Interest rates are high sixes. A chance that the Fed does lower them, hopefully at the end of July, to help the market. But the market just seems, nothing but it's getting slower at a steady rate, right? It's not. We're fixing to actually get out of summertime, so we're fixing to get back into school season. So what you're probably going to find is a lot of sellers, and I was listening to actually a video of somebody talking about this a couple days ago. You're probably going to see a lot of sellers between now and September, if their home don't sell, take their home off market and wait till next year, right out the school season again. And especially keep their low interest rate because it's not a fantastic market at all. For certain sellers, certain areas, certain price points, again, there's always micro niches. But how I recommend and how I sell homes that need a good bit improvements. I didn't want to say updates because that's kind of, a home that needs updates is still a very livable home in my eyes. My opinion of a home needs updates means got good bones, everything works, everything's good working condition. It's just that the windows are 40 years old. The appliances are 25 years old. But they all work and are in good condition. No major problems. Roof is 18 years old, right? It doesn't need to replace this year, but probably within the next, 5 to 10 years, going to need to be replaced. Same thing with HVACs. So the flip property I'm headed to right now, roof is actually good condition. It had like a 25-year-old HVAC, had like a 15, 20-year-old hot water heater. The inside of the home had like some some wallpaper, put up. It really, needed painting. The previous sellers, had painted the kitchen cabinets like an Airbnb beach blue type vibe. I don't know how to really describe that. So most likely, that's maybe some people don't really like that, and your average buyer is probably going to want to repaint those. Had a few deck boards we had to mess with. Actually, it was flagged by the loan. I had to put a railing up on the back porch, which I knew that was coming. I even, before the contract was even negotiated, we knew that was a possibility. So I had people ready. And the same thing, we had a sliding glass door. We had to replace the whole window pane on it where it was shattered. Wasn't like broken in pieces, but it was like spiderweb shattered. And we knew the appraiser should flag that. Getting very transparent with the other agent on there, very easy to work with. We knew all the possibilities and ins and outs before we even went under contract, because I hate fall throughs. Said this bunches of times. And you know how I've prevented fall throughs on all three of my flips? is I have done a full inspection beforehand. I mentioned this in a video I done, I don't know, a couple weeks ago there, for sellers, things you can do. I went ahead, for one, I want to know, my offer is always contingent on an inspection. Well, I can't say always, shoot, we closed Friday on a rental property that I had to waive it, which I mentioned, but felt very confident about everything with that home. And it being in, tens of thousands of houses, I have pretty good eye on what to look for. But anyways, I definitely did inspection on this one. Had a crawl space that had a little bit of stuff kind of going on. Couldn't really tell from visiting it there. But inspection come back pretty well, really overall, considering the area, price point, age of the home. Nothing really super major. Just a little bit going on in the crawl space, so I had to get some credits for there. But what I do and what I suggest is, you can't just say, hey, after all this is being updated, I'm just going to make this number up. The home is worth $100,000, so therefore let me sell it for let me sell it for $100, and I'll give you $20,000, aka $80,000 is what it's kind of sold for back to make the repairs, because you got to consider the buyer's time, energy, and effort that they're going to have to put into this, the decision making, the maybe not being in the house for a while, the pain, all that stuff that they got to go through to do this. You got to make it worth their time. So I knew this house, if I did all the work necessary, updating the proper stuff, it was probably going to sell for somewhere, $235, $240-ish, something like that. With just, again, probably overall $20,000 worth of stuff. So what I did is I said, hey, in my offer or my list price, I went way below that. So I went $20,000 below what it's worth, or what it'd be worth with all that. And I think you could probably get all that done within $15,000, maybe 20 at the high end. And then I said, I will kick you back another $20,000 to basically pay for all your closing costs and to give to a contractor to do whatever you want. So I'm kind of giving the buyer $20,000 of free equity to walk into the house, and and $20,000. So they're walking into the equity, but I'm also giving them the money back, a part of the deal, in order for them to make it their own, right? So they're not out of pocket more money. I'm giving them that money to make it their own, and to help them with that equity, which kind of is like two wins for a buyer. And that's what I really suggest to sellers that, either have something that's maybe super dated. Again, you got to kind of watch the just needs to be updated part. It's a little hard to do that versus it actually needs some repair. It needs some improvements to really make the home not livable, but enjoyable for a new homeowner. So I arguably kind of ate what I probably could have gotten another $20,000, but I didn't want to stretch it, right? For flipping, you kind of want to get your money, move on to the next project, instead of trying to stretch out and hold to make, potential of another $5,000 to $10,000 and on how it all worked out, and being on the market for months and then still potentially having to lower it all the way back down. I'd rather get my money, get the money that I intended to make and move on. Sometimes if you make more than that, great. But on this one, I made really right at what I thought I was going to make. My last one, I did that. My first one I made a little bit less than what I thought I was going to make. But this one myself, I probably had it on the market like 3 weeks. So, putting on market, listing it correctly, doing all the bells and whistles. It's not like I have some kind of secret sauce and I do something special for my own listings and I sell them in a day. It's not how it works. But what I did was I lowered the price extremely frequently after the first week. I let it ride, and then I was lowering the price $1,000, every 3 or 4 days to keep it fresh, keep it active. And every time I would do it, usually it would trigger a showing, because I wasn't priced too high at all. And that's something you got to start as a seller or a potential seller that you have to ask yourself. I think there is a big difference in this market as it's slow. Are you wanting to list your home or are you wanting to sell your home? May, I think that they released some data for May from 24 to May to 25. Our median sales price actually went down. So from May from 24, our median sales price was actually, I think it was a little over 2% higher than what it was in May of 25. I'm sorry, May of 25 was less than May of 24, right? So arguably, market went down just a tad in a year. And I was looking at another interesting stat, and it was like, it's something like 60% of the people who bought a home in the last 2 years, maybe I think it was like 60-something-ish percent, are basically at a break even, right? Is they think that they could sell their house for basically what they have in it, but they really would never make any money because of where our market is. And I do think that's probably true. I think people who bought in 22 or before, you're probably sitting on a ton of equity, depending on when you bought and everything. But definitely, if you've bought, in towards the end of 23 and at all in 24, right, you aren't going to make any money. You're probably going to lose a little bit of money time you actually pay some agent fees, pay some closing costs, because that's what the market is. Do any repairs. I have a poor seller that's right now. I mean, we had a great home, and it almost to the point where she was getting down into numbers. I was like, geez, this is almost where I would be real close to buying this and just keeping it as a rental. She's probably $20,000 away from that on what she's going to take on how this offer is going to play out. But this poor lady, she bought it in 21 I think it was 21, not with me, was out of state, had an inspector, only one inspector, was kind of like done through the agent, so potential collusion there, and like missed all this stuff wrong in the attic, a bunch of issues, crazy crawl space issues, and time it's all said and done, now she's still going to make a little bit of money, but she bought in a time where waiving inspection and just getting a home was so hard. You had to go above asking price and do 5,010 or more over an appraisal, and we've ran into sellers like that. And we got reconnected, but just wanted to share that. Again, the overall thought of the video is to offer credits at closing for the buyer to use towards contractors. You got to make it worth their time, right? So you're not going to sell your home for exactly what it's worth doing that, but you should know that going into it. Otherwise, then if you want to kind of get every penny back, maybe go ahead and fork out $20,000 and replace the appliances and replace the windows and do all that. But just know it might, it'd be risky.
In 2 miles, take exit 392 for US 11 West
to the new
North.
buyer and let them mess with it, and you're kind of at no risk or less risk, in my opinion. That's what I would strongly suggest. But as always, if you have questions, feel free to holler. Just wanted to share this with you as I got a long drive up to Tater Valley and back home to grab this, and that's how I sold this home. I gave $20,000 of credits so they can do whatever repairs that they wanted, while also letting them walk into about $20,000 of equity. So wanted to share that. If you have questions, holla.